What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's episode of WNS 9 Plus. I'm Jim. With me is Tyler, and joining us tonight is Neil Walker. Neil, thanks for coming on. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're a little pressed for time, so we'll just jump right into stuff. Pirate season not going according to plan, really. I think everybody's putting it quite lightly. Made a coaching change, made a managerial change in the clubhouse. So just a couple things that I want to get from you is, I don't think you've ever experienced a managerial change like mid-season, right?
Correct. Yes.
But what type of thing does that do to a clubhouse with just like mindset of players anytime there's a managerial change, whether it's in the middle of the year like this or I mean, you experienced one with John Russell to Clint Hurdle. Like, what's that? Is there like a switch that just kind of gets flipped when that happens? Like, what's going on in the clubhouse?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I was on that 09 at the very end of 09 and 2010 team here in Pittsburgh. But I remember more so in 2020, actually my last year. So it was basically my first year, my last year that I had somewhat managerial changes. And Rob Thompson, when I was in Philadelphia, was still the bench coach in 2020 when Joe Girardi was still the manager. And it's kind of funny, like in a clubhouse, when managers are there for a significant period of time, not necessarily that they're not doing a good job, but sometimes things just get a little overshadowed or like a little dull as far as the voice being heard or so on and so forth. And I noticed that a little bit when I was in Philadelphia. I didn't notice it quite as much when I was in Pittsburgh my first year, obviously, because John Russell, that was my rookie year. I was just trying to survive. And obviously in 2020, that was my last season. In the following season, Rob Thompson took over as manager. So, I like you said, I have seen it a couple times, but not very often. And, it's interesting. The role of a bench coach and the role of a manager, the bench coach tends to be the guy that's the go-between between the players and the manager. He's in charge of the schedule. He's in charge of the communication. And the manager tends to be more in charge of, dealing with the media, being the figurehead, all of that stuff. And in some instances, like, the bench coach tends to have a little bit more, communication and go between the players. And, sometimes that happens. And I'm not saying that necessarily happened in the Pirates spectrum. And of course, with my brother-in-law being the current manager and former bench coach, I'm a bit biased. So
right, a little bit.
But I'm also not in that locker room. So, but I can, from being around, it feels to me like, guys may have been, feeling a little bit more comfortable talking to DK, and maybe the voice got just a little bit stale at times.
So you're telling us you might know the new manager a little bit?
Just a little bit.
So obviously, Don Kelly steps in as the new manager. Also, your brother-in-law. What can us as fans expect from Don Kelly as a manager and just as a person as well? Because that's a lot of the baseball manager spot is how you interact with people.
Yeah, and I've said this many times. Like, I've always felt like the best managers were utility guys, super utility guys, and catchers. And that's no disrespect to the Bud Blacks of the world and the Clint Hurdles. There's no disrespect to that. But I've always firmly believed that these guys that were the grinders, were the catchers, were these guys that have to see the game a little bit differently. they tend to have a different mindset and different vantage point to the game on a day-to-day basis. And that's part of the reason why I think DK is going to be really good. But he was also cut from the Jim Leland mold, which, Leland was about people. He was about how do you get the most out of guys, but not necessarily, add the analytics to it. It was about, hey, during batting practice, hey, how's your family doing? How's your kid doing? How can we get you in the right mindset, whether things are going good or things are not going good, to perform for this team? And I think that's somewhat of a lost art in today's day and age of baseball, is like analytics gets so involved. It's like, well, this guy should be good against this certain pitcher and that certain pitcher. But like, there's so much to it when you talk about 162 games in 185 days. And sometimes it's about the people and it's about connecting. And so I think as time goes along, people are going to see that DK really cares about the players. He cares about his position, but he really cares about the organization in the city of Pittsburgh more than anything. I mean, he had opportunities. Guys, he had opportunities. He almost got the Red Sox job when Alex Cora took over. It was him or Alex Cora, and he missed out in a smidge. He had an opportunity to take over Miami when Skip Schumacher took over. He wanted to be in Pittsburgh. So he kind of thought that, not hopefully, but he kind of thought that maybe there was an opportunity for him to take over as manager here, and it happened. So I just hope at the end of the day, when the end of September rolls around, that he has an opportunity to take over next year, because I know how much he cares about this organization.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about that because, I mean, Pirates are sitting at 17-33. You look at the fan graphs playoff odds, and I think it's 0.1%,
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to say the season's over on May 21st, but like, Pirates probably aren't going to the playoffs. Let's just be real here. So like, what does success look like for Don Kelly from this point forward? Is it just wins and losses? Is it more nuanced than that? Like, what do you need to see to be like, you know what? That was a hell of a last 124 games.
Well, I think first and foremost, his message, and I know this, is like, how are we going to move forward? What do we have to do on a day-to-day basis to continue to move forward, to continue to push this thing in the right direction? Who are my veteran leaders? Where are my in-between guys? And who are my, my rookies and my young guys that need to continue to climb this ladder? And how do we take it to the next level? So, yeah, of course, things aren't all rainbows and sunshine as we sit here today with our record. So let's acknowledge that first. But I think that the message that DK is sending these guys is like, look, especially some of you guys that are here for the foreseeable future, and for whether it's contractually as veteran guys or, rookie status contractually, how are we going to move this ship forward? And what do we need to do? And I think the biggest thing is like, what is the status quo here? We hear Mike Tomlin always talk about the
standard.
Whatever he said.
Standard is a standard.
The standard is the standard, right?
Yep.
So, I can remember being back in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, and it was like, we are all pulling in the same direction, from player 1 to player 25. Whatever your role is, our goal is to win on a nightly basis. And whether you're struggling or doing well or whatever, or in between, how can we pull this ship together at the same time to give ourselves the best chance of winning on a night in and night out basis? So I know that he's having conversations internally with guys like, hey, we need to keep harping on the young guys, and on regardless of if we're losing 2 or 3 in a series, losing 3 or 4, winning 3 or 4, whatever the case may be, we have to find ways to positively move this ship in the right direction, so that at the end of the year, we have a clear-cut idea of where we need to improve going into the 26, 27, 28 season. So, I mean, sitting here now, we have a pretty good idea of what that looks like. But, you know, at the end of the year, you know, we'll see if that's changed significantly or a little bit. Whether, you know, the guys come back and, you know, some of these guys come back, Nick Gonzalez, Andy Rodriguez, you know, the offense could look a little bit different, but does it make a huge difference? We're not sure yet.
Yeah. So I like what you just said about him having other job offers out there. And that tells me it's a guy that wants to be a part of whatever we're building here. And we'll see what happens with it all. I guess, Neil, you got to have some Don Kelly stories that you can share with us here. You've known him long enough. There's got to be something out there that we don't know about Donnie Kelly.
Well, I'll tell you this, you know, and I said this on my radio show last week. I said, if there was, you know, I don't know if you guys have sisters. Do you guys have sisters?
I've got a sister.
Okay, so you know, there's guys in your circle that might be like, I really wouldn't like this guy or this guy or this guy or this guy dating my sister, but there's a couple guys on the short list like, okay, you know, well, Donnie's very high on this list, but I'll tell you this. So in 2002, I think it was, my sister was in college. She was playing basketball at Wagner University. She's a tremendous athlete. And Donnie and my brother were both playing in Erie for the Seawolves in the Tigers organization in AA. And my sister started to take a liking to going to the Erie Seawolves games. And we were like, what's going on here? Yeah, she never really had interest in doing that. Well, here we come to find that, you know, he and my sister were taking a liking to one another, and they were trying to be respectful to my brother who was on the team. And it just turned out that at some point somebody caught wind and saw them, you know, going to dinner, fraternizing, whatever the case may be. And what turned out to be obviously a successful marriage with three kids, it almost turned into a locker room AA fight at some point between my brother and Don Kelly, because somebody saw him with my sister, and my brother didn't know what was going on at the time because they didn't know if they actually did like each other, and they did. And obviously teammates wanted my brother to beat up Donnie. That didn't happen. And they've had a successful relationship since then. But it started before that, but it culminated in the Erie Seawolves environment in like 2002.
Neil, what are you doing if you're in that locker room with them? Are we like double teaming them as brothers?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm the youngest of four, and my oldest brother was on that team with Donnie, and my sister is older than me, so we had a certain relationship, and I might be on the boat of trying to kick his ass. I got to be honest with you.
Love it. Neil Walker would kick the Pirates manager ass.
There you go.
Headline.
I want to ask, there's this past week or so, I don't know what happened, but someone said something to somebody, and every single national media person in the world is now obsessed with the Pirates trading Paul Skenes, and that like they need to trade Paul Skenes. They're not surrounding him with anything. They're doing baseball a disservice by keeping him here. And I don't know, just like as a former Pirate, I mean, you grew up a fan, like, what do you take of these takes? I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's such a polarizing topic of discussion, right? Like, you know, you think about the guys that are there right now and how this organization can move ahead in a positive light, and somebody like Paul Skenes who could potentially command 600, 700. We have no idea. 600, 700, $800 million. We have no idea. And the interesting thing, you know, and not just the Pirates organization, but some of the small mid-tier markets is, you know, where is that line of demarcation as far as, you know, can we sign a guy? What does it look like if we do? And what does the rest of the group look like? And in a lot of instances, you know, in my instance, it was, I was traded 2 years before the end of my contract. Garrett Cole was traded 2 years. And that's a scenario where you're trying to get the most out of your return. And I can understand that. But at the same time, I hate that idea for somebody like Paul Skenes. I mean, I hated it for somebody like a guy like Garrett Cole, right? He hadn't reached his peak as a major league player until he got to really Houston, and the return on him wasn't fantastic. So I get both sides of it, but I do think there's scenarios where you got to stretch. You got to find ways to make. And what would that look like? Maybe 20 years for Paul Skenes, 20 years and
It'd be something ridiculous. Yeah,
right, like 20 years and $25 million a year. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's such an interesting, polarizing topic of discussion, because in most instances, if you don't sign early or you don't sign before your fourth year going into arbitration, and all of a sudden you're willing to roll the dice, it gets harder and harder the closer you get to free agency as a player, because your agent is telling you, like, you're so close, are you willing to do this? And at the same time, that if you were able to sign a guy like Paul Skenes to something in Pittsburgh, that it may end up being, it's fantastic. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there you go. We got a guest.
Okay, I'll get it. Put it in the back. Sorry, guys. I'm on daddy duty tonight.
No, you're good. You're good. I guess kind of along those same lines too. I mean, I think you're uniquely positioned here where, you grew up a Pirates fan in the Pittsburgh area, that you not only lived through the 20 years of losing as a fan, but then you were on kind of the tail end of that as a player as well. I guess just from a fan frustration standpoint, I don't know, it's just, I feel like we're at a peak. Do you recall ever fans ever being this frustrated at the team?
No, I really can't. And it's interesting for me because my earliest recollection is early 90s Pirates, Andy Van Slyke, Bobby Bonilla, Barry Bonds, and going to Three River Stadium 4, 5, 6 times a year. And it's never changed. That thought process has never changed. And when I got into high school and got in, and luckily to get drafted by the Pirates and get into pro ball with the Pirates, that thought process never changed. And even when I got into the big leagues and was here for whatever it was, 7 years in the big league, 6 years, and went somewhere else, it was always black and gold. And it was always, I knew that I was going to come back here and live in Pittsburgh, and I knew that I was going to have some vested interest in this organization. So it's tough. And I hold out hope. You look at, that you got to be good in the margins, as they like to say. That you got to be good on the three facets of the game, from offense, defense, and pitching. And you got to be lucky. You got to be lucky with the health. I mean, people tend to forget in 13, 14, and 15 the guys that we gambled on, the Edison Volquez's of the world, the Lirianos of the world. These guys were coming off of tough years and tough injuries, and they were lucky enough. We were lucky enough to get these guys and have things go right in both of those categories. So it's timing, but it's also, luck, but it's also doing things the right way. And I hope at the end of this year, if nothing else, that we have a foundation as far as we know who we want to be here for the next handful of years. We know what we need to continue to improve. And we know that we're going to trust in player A, B, C, D, E, and F all the way down to 26. And I know that my brother-in-law is very well accustomed to understanding this. He's been in this organization for enough years where he knows the minor league guys, he knows the big league guys. He's been in other organizations where he's seen growth as far as at the minor league level and the big league level. And my hope is that you just, going into the season, you're giving yourself the best opportunities to succeed.
Just to touch on the Skenes trade talk that will never happen because nobody has the value to give up to get Paul Skenes. Going back to your time here, I remember vaguely like some Andrew McCutchen trade rumors before he signed the contract with the team. I guess just to put it in your shoes where you were at that point, what would have trading in Andrew McCutchen there, who is basically the Paul Skenes of that team, what does that do to that mentality of that clubhouse?
Yeah, it would have been, I mean, if you plucked Andrew McCutchen out of the 12, 13, 14, 15 lineup, it would have been a lot different. It would have been very, Andrew was a staple of that group, and everything surrounded him. We went as he went, and he posted. He showed up every day, ready to play, and whether you were hitting in. My question every year from 12 to 15 was, am I hitting in front of Andrew or am I hitting behind Andrew? Because if I'm hitting in front of him, I'm trying to set the table for him to succeed. And if I'm hitting behind him, I'm hoping that there's multiple guys on base for me to help the team score runs. So, that is a very interesting conversation as well, because, you could say the same things about Paul Skenes because of how much he means to this team and this organization. So yeah, that's a very valid point for sure. And to answer your question directly, removing Andrew McCutchen from the 13, 14, 15 teams would make a very different team.
Speaking of scoring runs and all that, what's wrong with this offense and how does it get better? Like, I think we're starting. It was a good series for Brian Reynolds. I think that's a start.
Yep.
But like, they got to get him going more than I think anybody, and because he is that cog wheel in the middle of the lineup. And you had Cruz, who was hot there for April, and he's starting to go into a little bit of a slump, and he was hurt and out for a week. But and then you got the injuries that have been happening kind of in that middle of the lineup. But yeah, have you ever been part of a team that's just gone through? I know you've never been a part of a team that's gone through this kind of a stretch because there's only 3 teams who've ever done it. But have you ever been part of a team that's just, it seems like for weeks and weeks and weeks, you just can't hit?
Yeah, well, I was on that 2010 team that lost 105 games. So I remember what, and you got to remember something, players like to cut up the year in series, right? It's how do we win 2 of 3? How do we win 3 of 4? How do we win 2 of 2? Whatever that may be. And when things start to go a little bit sideways, you start to have this mindset, and I really hate to admit it, but you get to a point where it's like, oh man, it's game 2 of the series. We lost game 1. It's 4-2 in the 6th inning against the Brewers on the road. Like, oh crap, like how are we going to lose this game? So
yeah.
It's terrible to say, but at the same time, when you have instances where it's like, man, we see what we have here, 6 through 9 in our offensive order have not been helping whatsoever, and 1 through 4 have been pretty good, but a couple of these guys have really been struggling lately. How do we generate runs? And it makes for really a strange environment, but also, I've been on teams where managers like Clint Hurdle, there were times where individually, if you were struggling or as a team you were struggling, he'd grab you before the game and be like, hey, listen, we may bunch you in the 6th inning right here, or we may find a spot for you to hit and run here to generate some offense.
Neil, is that what Clint Hurdle did different though? Just to jump in real quick, is that where he's different than other managers? Is he had the wherewithal ahead of time to know you're struggling. I'm going to tell you right now, 6th inning of this game, you might bunt. We don't see.
I would totally agree with that, and I would say that DK Donnie is cut from kind of that same mold from that communication standpoint. But I'm telling you, there were times where we lost 4 out of 6, and we had interdivision game, and it was the second inning, and he'd grab you and he'd go, "Hey, just make sure you're paying attention to the third base coach. If the leadoff runner gets on first base right here, and you're hitting left-handed and the hole's open, we may try to hit and run right here." And that was a mindset of like, okay, we're getting out of this mindset of I'm trying to hit a home run or I'm trying to drop a ball in the gap, and we're trying to create something here, to create some momentum from a team perspective. And I think that was what Clint was very good at. He was very good at communicating, but he was also very good at understanding situations. And that's not an easy thing, in my opinion, for managers to do.
Yeah. Well, Neil, we appreciate you coming on. I want to do one thing before we leave. We did this with Jack Wilson a couple of weeks ago, and I want to say he nailed it. He nailed it. So we're gonna do a little trivia. We're gonna test your memory here.
Oh my gosh!
So you made your major league debut on September 1st,
Yep.
2009. You were a pinch hitter. You started the next game, September 2nd. That was your first major league start.
Yep.
Can you name the starting lineup for the Pirates from your major league debut?
Oh my gosh! Was Ross Ollendorf pitching that day?
He was not. No,
was Daniel McCutcheon pitching that day?
No. It's a day game in Cincinnati.
I almost feel like it has to be Paul Maholm.
It has to be Maholm, right?
No, it wasn't Maholm.
Oh my God.
He went on to have a long, distinguished career.
Was it Eric Bedard?
No.
That was 2012.
Okay, well, something tells me that Kutch was in center, and
Kutch was in center. Yep.
Brandon Moss was probably in right field.
Yep.
Okay, was Ronnie Cedeno at shortstop?
Ronnie Cedeno at short.
Was I playing third or second that day? Third, right?
You were at third. Yeah.
Okay. Was Garrett Jones playing first?
Garrett Jones at first.
Was Jason Jaramillo catching?
No.
Okay, the catching situation always gets me jammed up between 9 and 14. But okay.
So we need catcher, left field.
Wait, was Garrett Jones playing left field?
Garrett Jones was in first. He was at first.
Oh, he's at first. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we need second, left, catcher, and then starting pitcher.
Second base. Oh my gosh, I'm running a blank right here. Was the starting
hitter
pitcher
just
righty
like
or
you?
lefty?
Switch hitter like you. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't Aki Uemura was just a left-handed hitter at that point. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't him.
You need a how about he ruined Steven Strasburg's debut.
Oh, it was
Delwyn
Young. There you go.
Okay. He was at second or left.
We got left. He was at second.
Okay.
And then we've got left field, who also he came from the Nationals.
Oh, Lastings Millage.
Lastings. And
Okay.
then catcher, another switch hitter. Switch hitters all
It wasn't Jaramillo. Wow.
No.
I have a guess, but
Was he somewhere else where I would have would?
Yeah, he was on the Pirates for 8 years. Fangraphs killed him with his WAR after they changed.
I was going to ask, how were his defensive metrics?
Defensive metrics are bad. He's like the worst.
It was Ryan Doman.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So the pitcher was righty or lefty?
Lefty.
Ooh.
And it wasn't Maholm. It wasn't Zach Duke.
Zach Duke.
Hey.
Hey, we got it.
You said lefty, and it was like light bulb.
Well, I can remember the night before. I remember I got in the bat like maybe in the 6th or 7th inning, and I hit a ball in the 4-hole, and Brandon Phillips made a diving play on me, and he basically ran past me, and he was like, "Welcome to the big leagues, kid," and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like how the big leagues.
Of all people to welcome you.
Yeah. He tortured us for the next 5 years. So
yeah, he did. He really did torture us. That, and I mean, Homer Bailey was the pitcher in that game for the Reds too, and I feel like he just. I mean, he threw a no-hitter agagst us at one point?
I'm pretty sure he's the last guy to have a no-hitter at PNC Park. Is that right?
He might be.
I think he is.
Yeah.
Right. I think it was like 2012 or 13, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
2012, I think.
All right. Well, Neil, that was a fun exercise. You didn't do as good as Jack. I'll say that.
He got like 8 out of 9, right?
Jack nailed it. Jack got all of them. It took him a little bit, but yeah, he got
he's a walking encyclopedia though. So
he's also got a good that was 10 years per than you. So
yeah, that was impressive. Now, I'm even more impressed now. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be. I'm hoping he comes back when Oakland comes back into town with Jacob in mid-September. Maybe you guys want to make a visit down to the ballpark. So yeah, we'll have to. He did say that. He said the whole family's like coming in town. That's awesome
for that series. So that should be fun. I'm sure he'll make an appearance on Sportsnet Pittsburgh at some point that weekend.
Very well,
All right, Neil. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. It's always fun having you. Appreciate it again. But yeah, everybody, you can watch Neil on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Neil, your Twitter's what, like Neil Walker 18?
Yeah, and Walks 18, I believe is what it is. Yeah,
and Walks 18.
Yep.
Yeah, so follow Neil on Twitter.
I'll be on the next road trip. I got the Arizona San Diego road trip. So thank you guys for having me on. You guys do great work. I always love seeing your content. So keep it up.
Yeah, we appreciate you. And we'll be in Pittsburgh this weekend. So we've got our big NS9 tailgate this weekend, and we'll be at the ballpark all weekend. So if any of you guys watching see us, come say hi.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch you all later. Everybody watching, listening, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We will talk to you later. All right, that wraps up this episode of North Shore 9. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whether you're listening on the podcast or catching us on YouTube, if you enjoyed the show, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps us grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, a quick review goes a long way in helping others find the show. Plus, be sure to tell a friend about us. There's always room for more here in the NS9 community. And for those looking to support us a little more, consider joining our Patreon, become an MVP member, and get exclusive perks while helping us continue to bring you more of the Pirates content you love. Thanks again for all your support, and let's go Bucks.